Welcome, Franca Muller Paz. I was saying earlier in the podcast that we want you on here because we've heard great things about your campaign, and also our ticket wants to support down ballot campaigns. So if you're ready to talk about your campaign for a few minutes, the floor is yours.
Yeah, that sounds great. Yeah, yeah, thank you. I've just been on with the school district. We're trying to talk about this plan about how we're going to reopen schools, and it's a big mess. So we'll see what ends up happening. But yeah, so my name is Franca Muller Paz. I've been teaching in public schools for the last 10 years. I've been elected for 3 terms to be a building representative for our Baltimore Teachers Union. So I've really been trying to fight for teachers, workers within schools, families, students. And when we first started teaching, I actually tried to work to unionize the charter school where I was teaching at the time. Unfortunately, that union effort was squashed. The school was closed. They took a couple years and reopened again, and no more union effort. But so, yes, I've been really excited to be here and talk with you all about the work that I've been trying to do to fight for students and families. I grew up in Paterson, New Jersey. I'm originally from Peru and immigrated here with my mother so we could meet with my father, who's also a Peruvian immigrant. And we lived in Paterson. And for anyone who's familiar with Paterson, it's a small factory town, sort of like a mini Baltimore. And when we lived there, my father was really concerned about the quality of the schooling that was available in Paterson. It had a really bad reputation around safety, and there were also some issues with drug-related violence in our neighborhood. And so he made a really big leap and found a way to have us housed in a neighborhood that was just a few miles away, but might as well have been another planet as far as we were concerned. And so my dad is a construction worker, and he worked night shifts and day shifts doing construction so that we could stay in this neighborhood. And we really struggled. We struggled to make sure we could pay bills on time and keep the lights on, struggled to avoid being evicted. And so I grew up a lot of my childhood and teen life never really getting to see my father because we were working so hard to be able to stay in this place so that he could get me the education that he felt like I deserved. And that's just something that really built a need to fight the injustice that happens across our country, where the quality of life that you have and the quality of your education is really predetermined by what zip code you're growing up in. And so that's really been something that I've tried to bring to the struggles that I've participated in, whether it's been around issues affecting workers or the immigrant community or having to do with police violence. And so I'm excited for this opportunity now to try to bring the fight and bring the organizing I've been doing around our city to be able to address a lot of these major issues we're continuing to battle. And I think Baltimore is tired of trying to solve the same old problems with the same old solutions that really are just maintaining the status quo. So we're really excited, and I'm running for Baltimore City Council for District 12.
Tell us about your announcement. I saw a picture and saw an article, and you had like this whole army of bikes riding through the district.
Yeah, we had a really great time. So we launched this past or the Sunday before last, and I have a friend who's a landscaper, and he lent us the trailer of his landscaping truck, and we put 3 different bands on there over the course of the night, and we did a caravan on bike and cars through the district so we could announce ourselves to the many neighborhoods that we're hoping to represent and fight for. So it was really exciting, and we got to announce at the time that we had raised, I think at that point, $19,000 in 19 days. So it's been really exciting. We've had a lot of support. We have over 130 volunteers, I think, at this point, working and supporting the campaign. I believe more now. And so, yeah, we're feeling really energized going into this November election, and are just trying to keep up the momentum and make sure that We let people know that there's a contested election in November. You know, Baltimore is a blue city, and so a lot of folks feel like the election season is over when the primary is over, and we want to make it really clear that there's a choice, and it's important for us to, you know, have this ability to engage in the democratic process, and choices are important. And so we're also engaging in a ballot effort to make sure that the Green Party can be represented in Maryland.
You want to ask her any questions, Angela? I got more, but
no, I'm really excited listening to, you know, your history and, you know, what you're looking to make happen with this, and all of that energy that you're bringing with this. This is dope.
Thank you. Yeah, and I think part of the reason we're so excited is that this year has come with a lot of wins. So before announcing my candidacy, I've been working on dealing with the issue of the digital divide. In Baltimore, over 40% of households don't have a connection to broadband internet. So maybe they're getting internet through their phone or something like that, which is obviously not enough to be able to do what's necessary to engage in modern life. And when you look at it, it's really broken down on racial grounds. So for those of you that are familiar with redlining, which was the process of basically locking out Black and brown communities from wealth for many, many decades, when you look at redlining maps, the same patterns are visible when you look at digital connectivity. And so while over 70% of our city's white community has fast, high-speed internet, only around 50% of Black communities do, and 46% of Latinx communities. And so right now we're facing a situation where 1 in every 2 Black and brown students is not going to be able to engage in their education this fall. We're doing online learning this fall thanks to a BTU win, but it's a huge issue. And so luckily we fought this at City Hall, and we won $3 million this spring to try to close the digital divide. Now we've taken this to a national fight. So me, fellow teachers, and Baltimore City students from an organization called SOMOS, which is Students Organizing a Multicultural Open Society. We've been organizing not just in Baltimore, but organizing with city council and activists in Philadelphia, in Detroit, and we have gotten their city council people to write a resolution that supports our call to Comcast, because what we've realized is that our city hall, we got them to put the money down. We've gotten our city schools to make sure that they're trying to connect our families to devices too. But this huge internet service provider that's making millions of dollars in profits off of COVID, they're being left off the hook. And so we've asked them to increase speeds for internet, to ensure that hotspots are available for families to be able to connect, to make sure that their low-income internet program, which is called Internet Essentials, is extended so that from the moment you enroll until 60 days after the full resumption of schools, it continues to be free. And so, yeah, so we're really excited that we have created, gone from a local campaign to a national campaign, that we've been able to get these city councils in 3 cities to start to lobby these same 3 demands. And we actually have a huge action with our Baltimore Teachers Union. We're over 7,000 members strong, and we're going to be participating in a national day of action, calling on Comcast to do what's right for families to ensure that our kids can get educated in the fall. So we've been fighting all year long. So, we're ready to keep doing it all the way through November and beyond.
Well, I really am impressed that you raised $19,000 in 19 days and you got 130 volunteers. And the Greens out there listening, this is how you do it. I mean, we're not just running to be on the ballot and say we ran. We're running to win, particularly in these local races. So, Franca, how did you decide to run? What kind of campaign organization you put together? Are the teachers union or a lot of other teachers without the union helping you?
Yeah, so I had never really thought about pursuing public office. That wasn't something that was in the plans for me. But last fall, after a long series of campaigns that I had been fighting with students around educational equity, We have a few schools in our city. I teach at one of them where you have to have a certain score to be able to enter those schools. So they're public schools, but they have some thresholds that you have to meet as a student to access them. And we noticed that there were some really disturbing patterns. One is that there were nearly no ESOL students attending these schools. The number of students with IEPs or individual service plans, educational service plans, were really, were not well represented. Same with numbers of students that were identified as homeless, and students that came from schools that were in concentrated poverty. And so we've been working really hard to try to change the process for how students apply to these schools to be able to have a fair, equitable process so that all students across our city have a chance to attend these amazing schools that we have, that are public schools, and they do great work, but it's really important that everyone has equal access to them. And so in the middle of this fight, several community members and leaders of community organizations began approaching me, asking me to consider running in this city council race. And so when I ultimately made my decision, I decided I have supported Greens, and I didn't want to run as a Democrat. I felt like this, unfortunately, the Democratic Party and a lot of the leadership in the Democratic Party in our city has not been setting a good role model for how politics should be done. They've been taking money from corporations, from developers. I'll tell you right now that almost all of the politicians in our city hall take money from Comcast. And so when we wonder, why do we have a 10-year franchise agreement that gives this company almost exclusive rights to operate in the city, I shouldn't be too surprised when they're giving money to almost all the politicians that are in the Democratic Party. And so I decided it was really important to run with the Green Party, a party that has a really high moral standard, that is fighting for economic justice, for racial justice, that centers that in their platforms. And so I decided to listen to my community that was asking me to run, and I wanted to run with a party that I felt really symbolized the things that I've been fighting for as an educator for the last 10 years.
That's what's up.
Well, that's the kind of candidates we need, that the movement throws up. They look around and say, we need to run somebody, and then that's how I've got involved in a lot of races. I wasn't planning to run, including this one, but people asked me to. And I'm just, looking forward to, at some point, coming down there and helping out with your campaign.
That would be wonderful.
Yeah. Once the petition drive's over, we got a couple months after Labor Day, and hopefully we'll be out there doing a little barnstorming and supporting candidates like you. So
that'd be fantastic. Oh, and if I could add, I just want to say that I think, and I've gotten to know this as I've spoken to more women of color who have run for office, is that this is often the story of women of color. I think a lot of Black and Latino women, we don't grow up thinking that politics is a space where we're welcome or where our voices are going to be valued and heard. And I think a lot of women of color, and Angela, you can tell me what was your experience, but had to be asked because it wasn't something that you feel on your own. And so that's been something that's been a really part of this process. But I think it's really important to really urge Black women, Latino women, and other women of color to really, open themselves up to running for office, because we need to hear those voices, and we need to make sure that the struggles of our people are represented. And so, I wish I had grown up with that kind of self-assuredness that many white men have of wanting to run for office, but I think that's just often not the path. And so I really hope that if you see, leaders in your community that are strong, Black and Latina women, to please, uplift them and encourage them so that they can pursue politics, because we need them.
I could not say it better. You said it perfectly. I've been drafted for this. It was not something that, like, oh yeah, let me put myself no. But everything that you said, you're exactly right.
So you mentioned the digital divide. I imagine housing is a big issue, given that the rent is too damn high everywhere these days, and we're facing all these evictions. And you mentioned how the Democrats all take money from Comcast. I would guess they all take money from the developers in the real estate industry, which is why we have redlining, why we have police that sort of police the boundaries between the downscale and the upscale communities. So, you mentioned education and the digital divide. Are there any other particular issues in Baltimore that you're addressing in your campaign?
Yeah, there's actually a horrible situation happening right now. So there is a housing project called Perkins Homes. They are really fortunately located just a few blocks away from the harbor. And so it's wonderful. There are very few housing projects in our city where you can just walk a few blocks and get down to the waterfront and enjoy all the beautiful amenities and development that's taken place there. And so now our city is considering a tax break of $105 million to develop this area in Perkins. And what they've been promising for years to the residents that they've been trying to get on board with this development plan is that they've been saying, hey, we're going to temporarily move you out, but you're going to get to come back. And when you come back, there's going to be beautiful housing that addresses all the conditions that, haven't been being met in these 70-year-old housing buildings. And you're going to get to come back, and there's going to be these beautiful buildings, and you're going to have a park, and there's going to be a grocery store, and we're going to tear down the old school and put in a new school. So all these incredible things. And residents were really excited. They were really excited for a development that was finally going to positively impact them, because I think we're exhausted of development projects that only happen in already affluent parts of the city or parts that are predominantly white parts of the city. And so, people were really on board. And then what just got decided on Monday is that there's no longer room for the affordable housing that was supposed to be in this new development. The numbers just didn't work out, is what they said, is what the developer said. The numbers just don't work out. And so now, instead of having a required amount of affordable housing in the location of this current housing project called Perkins, it's going to be completely replaced by luxury market price buildings. And all of the folks that live here are going to be pushed north, further away from the harbor, into a housing project that was demolished. And so, I think, and our councilman isn't putting up any kind of fight. And so this is something that I think is extremely problematic, where we're getting grants, to fund these kind of developments that originally are saying that we're earning these grants because we're saying that we're going to help low-income people. And then at the end of the day, they get cut out of the deal. And so we're basically using them to be able to get money for these projects that are never meant to benefit them, or just to keep benefiting the kind of people who can afford luxury housing. And it's hugely problematic. So that's something that, we're in the process right now of figuring out how we're going to fight back. There's going to be a vote in the city council coming up. And so we want to make sure that our council is making a decision where they're centering the needs of people and residents that have dedicated their lives here, that have grown up in these housing projects, and not to just allowing corporate developers to get away with whatever they want.
Yeah, it's a familiar story in a lot of cities. It's bait and switch. They sell you one thing, and once they get the permits and the subsidies, the numbers don't work. Oh, man.
Exactly. Yeah, so that's that. So what they're going to be benefiting from is what's traditionally called the TIF, the tax increment financing. And so $105 million that these companies are going to be off the hook. It's going to be the second largest TIF in our city. And so, yeah, no, it's, we want to really draw a firm line in the ground that, you can't make promises to people and just rip it out from under them. Not to mention that a lot of the people in these communities already started moving out this summer with those pretenses that they were going to get to come back. And now the reality is, if we don't fix this, they're never going to get to come back to where they grew up. They're going to be moved.
So why don't you give people your website and or Facebook so they can find a way to support you and find out more about what you're doing?
Yeah, that'd be great. So our Facebook and all of our social media, you can find me at Franca Muller Paz, which I think you can see my name on the screen. So Franca Muller Paz, you can find me on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and then our website is francaforthepeople.com. And you can sign up to volunteer no matter where you live. You can help with phone banking, and you can also donate to the campaign. It's really important that we continue to receive donations. We're fighting against a corporate-backed Democratic Party opponent. So we really need all the help that we can get. We have a super viable campaign. This incumbent is extraordinarily weak. In the primary, he only won with around 40% of the vote. So so 60% of the district wanted someone else, wanted different kind of leadership. And so we really have a chance to win this election in November, but we can only do it if we have the kind of finances that allow us to compete with a campaign that's receiving corporate developer money and also money from our police union. They've also backed him in previous campaigns.
So how big is the district? How many people, what's the vote you expect?
So the vote number that we need to win is around 8,700. So there's going to be a little shy of double that in the district that are possibly voting. But the number that we need to come out to the polls and support us is around 8,700 people.
Well, with the number of volunteers you got in door knocking, even with social distancing and masking, I know in local elections that makes a huge difference. So I hope you all are out there. And, it's definitely doable. So listen, anything you think we can do from the presidential ticket to help, just let us know.
Please.
And,
Please.
Good luck. And, we'll do all we can.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much. Thank you for having me on here to speak with you both. And yeah, any support that we can get from other folks that feel sympathetic with the Green Party and our Green Party members, that goes a long, long way. And it's really important. We need to have more voices. We can't just have one party representing the entire city. There is divergent interests and needs. And so we really hope we have a chance to unseat this incumbent who has not been taking care of the needs of the people, had opportunities, for example, to support a fight for 15 minimum wage, didn't take it. And so we really want to make sure that we're in there fighting for union interests, worker interests, fighting for our students and families, fighting to make sure that people get to have the housing that they need. And it's really important, especially now with the COVID situation. I think a lot of people who maybe even never saw themselves so close to the precipice are there now, and we're all there together, and we need to make sure that we're uplifting the kind of politics that are putting people first and not making these, short-sighted decisions to try to, save company profits in the moment, when ultimately that just means we're going to have to keep opening and shutting down over and over again, and potentially, throwing residents out on the street through evictions and foreclosures. We can't do this to people. It's inhumane. And these policies that are not centering people's health and well-being, there's blood on someone's hands. These decisions result in loss of life, and we have to do something about it. Well, everybody, I hope you're looking at the next city councilor from Baltimore. And
you are looking at the next city councilor of Baltimore. We are speaking it into the universe. You are looking at the next city councilor.
Thank you.